Good evening and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story this hour. The final clinical trials for the coronavirus vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University have been put on hold after a suspected adverse reaction was seen in a participant in the study. The world is closely watching the vaccine trials. Researchers are conducting trials in the United States, the United Kingdom, Brazil and South Africa. Meanwhile, the abrupt halt has been described by AstraZeneca as a routine pause in the case of an unexplained illness. Now, the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine is a strong contender among dozens being developed globally. There are almost 30,000 people participating in the trial. The vaccine had been expected to be publicly available as early as January of 2021. Now, this is the second time that the Oxford coronavirus vaccine trial has been put on hold. However, it may resume in the next few days. As per the World Health Organization, nearly 180 vaccine candidates are being tested around the world, but none has yet completed the clinical trials successfully. Now, we are being joined by Elisabetta Grappelli, who is a virologist and a lecturer in global health at St. George's University of London. Good evening and thank you so much for being with us. Now, the final clinical trials... Great, thanks. The final clinical trials for the coronavirus vaccine being developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca have been put on hold. This after an adverse reaction was seen in one of the participants. Now, AstraZeneca has said that this is a routine pause in the case of an unexplained illness.
Absolutely. This is something that is absolutely embedded in the clinical trial protocols. The moment a volunteer experiences the medical illness or the need for medical treatment, the first thing that is done is actually put the entire trial on hold, which means stopping the recruitment and then also administering the vaccinations. And this is very much because safety and precaution is absolutely paramount in all the phases of clinical trials. And this is also to allow independent investigators to ask the really very important question that if this illness that has been detected is actually linked to the vaccination or is just an event that has occurred independently.
Right, and this vaccine had been expected to be publicly available as early as January of next year. Now, there's been a lot of criticism that safety might be being compromised in the race for a vaccine, especially considering the political dimensions that have come into play, as an example.
Absolutely. There is a lot of pressure on vaccine development to actually come up with a product that is going to solve all the problems of this pandemic. However, it's also been clear, and this is an example, that although the processes have been facilitated and fast-tracked, shortcuts are certainly not on the agenda when it comes to the front runners, including the Oxford-Astrazeneca vaccine trial. And this is specifically an example that we're seeing now. So there was no hesitation by the trial organizers actually to pause when and is as required by the trial protocol, specifically to allow safety but also allow independent inquiry about what's going on.
Right, and there are almost 30,000 people who are participating in this trial. What happens to them now while this trial has been put on hold? And then also, do we know what the adverse reaction is that one person has suffered, and how serious is it?
So putting the trial on hold simply means that there are no more administrations of the vaccine in trial at the moment. That's what is being posed, and also no more volunteers are recruited for the time being, as long as the investigation is going on. What does it mean for the volunteers that have already received the vaccines? Well, they'll still be kept monitoring, and for them, if we want, the trial will still be going on. But I think it's important, and they also keep doing what they're required to do, which is contact the trial organizations any time they might experience medical conditions, especially for what is the adverse effect that has been identified in this one single volunteer. There isn't an official diagnosis that have been shared by AstraZeneca and Oxford. There have been some reports from media outlets that is actually a type of myelitis, an inflammation of the spinal cord, but that has not been confirmed. And this type of disease would normally be associated with infectious diseases, yes, viruses, not necessarily vaccines, but also bacteria. So it's very, very important that investigators independently understand how this happened, and again, especially if it is linked to the vaccinations, or if it's something that the volunteer, because it's a human being living its life, actually encounter as part of life and not as part of the clinical trial.
Right, and Elisabetta, just finally and very quickly, do we know when this trial is expected to resume?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the investigation will give us the answers. There are talks about only a few days, likely a week or two, if everything is confirmed to be fine. Of course, longer if not.
Right. Thank you very much for bringing us all the latest there.